Well, today finds me on top of what's called Mount Sugarloaf, just across the Connecticut River from the town of Sunderland, Massachusetts, which is right there. And we're looking down at the Connecticut River and the valley that it flows through. And subject has come up in some of my other videos about the Rift Valley that the Connecticut River follows through its entire course through Massachusetts and much of its course through Connecticut. It was formed in the Triassic and Jurassic periods, and because that land was subsiding and filling in with mud and gravel and sand, made a great place for dinosaurs to leave their footprints in the mud and sand and gravel that was filling that valley at the time. And yes, the valley's still here, and if we know where to look, the footprints are still here. Many of them have been uncovered by quarrying and construction operations. A very famous, well-known park in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, Dinosaur State Park, has an excellent exhibit of those. I'm going to be stopping at some lesser-known places where there's supposed to be dinosaur footprints for your viewing. So we're going to be stopping 3 or 4 different places, maybe even more if I have the time, to track dinosaurs in the Connecticut River Valley. And while we're on top of Mount Sugarloaf here, let's zoom in on one of the locations where we should be able to find dinosaur footprints. You see that triangular peak right there? That's Mount Tom in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And to the east of it is called the Seven Sisters, which is a range of volcanic basalt. And just to the east of that layer of basalt, the Connecticut River cuts a gorge through that basalt. It's a little hard to see it from here, but it's there. Just below that gorge, there's a place operated by the Massachusetts Trustees of Reservations that has dinosaur footprints out in the open that were uncovered by construction operations building the highway. So that's one place I know we can find them. Well, before going down to the Dinosaur Footprints Reservation in Holyoke, I'm going to head north up the Connecticut Valley about 10 miles from here, near the towns of Gill, Massachusetts, and Turners Falls, Massachusetts. There's a pretty unique area called Lily Pond that you can walk to. That was a dinosaur footprint quarry, and many of the dinosaur footprints on display at the museums, including the one in Amherst at Amherst College, came from that quarry. So that's historically significant. And there's also some roadside areas that I've read about that could have footprints that we could find. So we'll be exploring the area just north of here along the Connecticut River for the next few hours. Well, I haven't really even begun exploring the Barton, Cove, and Lily Pond area here in Gill, Massachusetts. I wasn't even on the trail that goes to the dinosaur footprint quarry, and I started finding rocks to check out for evidence of prehistoric life. I've learned just leave no stone unturned when you're looking for fossils. So I scrambled up this hill. And sure enough, I believe what I have is some impressions that plants would have made in this red stone. Stone probably wasn't red when it was first formed. It was probably just a natural color of sand and silt. This is mostly sand here, a fine sand with a little bit of mica in the mix. It's kind of got a little bit of shine to it. A lot of the sedimentary rocks that we're going to be looking through for these fossils and fossil imprints are red because the minerals in the sand and silt and mud rusted after it was deposited, which tells scientists that the water was very shallow, because in order for minerals to rust, they have to react with oxygen, and for water to have oxygen in it, it has to be near the surface of the water and not deep down thousands of feet in the ocean. So this was shallow water, and this looks like some kind of a plant that laid down here and left an impression in this what looks like a fine sandstone here. There is a trail back to the dinosaur footprint quarry that I'm going to go check out next. All right, well, after just taking a short detour to look at those plant fossils, we're back at the Barton Cove picnic area. There's also a campground back here that's only open in the summer till Labor Day. This is a couple weeks after that, but still got some great weather for exploring. So what we have here is called Barton Cove. This is tailwater from the Turner's Falls Dam, which is just about a mile downstream from here. So this would not have been water before the river was dammed. It would have just been low, probably farmland. The river actually ran and still runs on the other side of this hill. But what happened is when the river was trying to find its course after the glaciers melted, it was kind of running into a lot of obstacles, and there was a temporary waterfall here, right there, where the river carved out a big giant hole in the bedrock. And then the river found another course down towards Turner's Falls where another waterfall developed, and left this plunge pool, it's called, where the waterfall carved out the rock. It left it empty, or left the pool, basically a hole in the bedrock here that's I think I looked it up, it was like 20 or 30 feet deep, and nothing else. So in the early 1800s, people found this pond here and started exploring quarrying the rocks around it to use for flagstone for sidewalks. These rocks break into nice clean layers here. This is sandstone and siltstone here. You can see how evenly it breaks. So they were quarrying it for flagstone to use as sidewalks. This is pre-concrete days. And they started finding the dinosaur footprints, and the gentleman that owned the property got in contact with Amherst College, and as they say, the rest is history. All kinds of footprints got taken from there and put on display. Rumor has it there is one footprint left there that I know is there, at least they say is there, and maybe more will show up if we do a little looking around in areas with exposed bedrock. The problem with footprints is they can weather away with frost and snow and everything else. So that's why most of them have been found during construction activity, not just people hiking through the woods. But we'll see what we can find. There's several trails that go back through this area. There's a campground back here that goes all the way to the end of this ridge here. And we'll go check out the whole peninsula since we're here. See if we can find the one footprint that I know is supposed to be there, and any others that might pop up. Well, we'll leave no stone unturned as we explore this area. I haven't quite got back to where the quarry was. I am checking out all these rocks, and this one caught my attention. I think you can see it clearly. Ripple marks. So we're talking about water that was shallow enough that the wave action was preserved in the sand or mud underneath it. So that's what we have here. And ripple marks are pretty common. They say there's even fossilized raindrop imprints in the mud around here, in the rocks. So we'll keep looking for anything that catches my attention. So we'll call this not just tracking dinosaurs, but tracking raindrops and plants and anything else that comes into view as we explore these areas. Well, the interpretive trail here at Barton Cove is beautiful. Goes under and around a lot of cliffs. It joins the campground road for just a short distance, then goes back in the woods. We have those diamonds on the tree for markers. Not a lot of signs though, so I did a little looking online to see what was here, and one of the local professors, Professor Little, had a video about this whole area, including this quarry here. So this is the quarry where a lot of the dinosaur footprints were removed from the earth. This is not the plunge pool that the waterfall made. That's where the first discoveries were made, and then this is an intentional quarrying operation right here. There's no evidence of a waterfall here. This is more just the where they decided they would start removing rocks here to see what they could find. So you can see it's about 30 feet deep. The rocks are all tipped about almost 30-40 degrees. We can get into how that happens later. We'll be making several stops on this video. But for the dinosaurs to make footprints, they wouldn't be walking up a hill and leaving footprints. The rocks were level at the time. How they got tipped up, we'll get into that later. But on the videos I've seen, they said that this slab of rock right here was removed from the quarry, and there's footprints in it. Well, I looked and looked and looked and had to get the needles off of it and did my best to see if I could use my imagination to find some. I sprinkled what I thought was dinosaur footprints with some baby powder to see if it would help accentuate the footprint. Then I sprayed it with a little water to see if that would help. I think we have something we can look at here. It's faint. I probably wouldn't have known it was here if I hadn't seen the other video. But 3 toes on a dinosaur. And here we are. Middle toe, small toe, small toe. They're not always that big, but they can be. This one here, again, it's kind of using my imagination. This was a larger footprint here, maybe 8-10 inches across. 1 toe, middle toe, and another toe. And I think I found a smaller one here as well. 1 toe here, 1 toe here, and 1 toe here. I know the ones in Holyoke that I'm going to go see tomorrow are better preserved. So I know we can strike gold there, at least gold for an outdoor footprint. They do get weathered. They're not as crisp as the ones you see in museums. But this place is historically significant. Beautiful walk. And there's one other geological feature I'm going to visit on the way back out. It's going to be about a mile and a half loop. It's basically a fossilized earthquake. And we'll take a look at that on the way out. But this interpretive trail is worth seeing, even if you don't find a lot of dinosaur footprints. The fact that they were quarried here, and this whole area is the birthplace of paleontology, at least this type of paleontology. So this is worth seeing for the beauty of this park and the historical value. Well, we'll finish up our visit to Barton Cove here, and this is so pretty back here. If I'd known it was this pretty, I would have done a hike here by itself, just as a destination for this channel. But we're going to splice it in with the other ones, with the dinosaur footprints. This interpretive trail is great. There's a few missing signs, but you can find it if you look. There's a map at the start we'll look at. You can also get the brochure from First Light Power, I think it is, that runs this place. This is run by the utility company. Look at the rocks here. We've been looking at them all afternoon. They're in layers. Some of the layers are a few inches thick, some are thicker than that. Very orderly. They're all leaning at an angle. Some of them are leaning the other way if they broke off the cliff. Everything's nice and orderly, no problems. Well, unfortunately, everybody who's seen what happens when an earthquake hits areas where the buildings are made of materials that break easily, stone, concrete, or brick, knows what the rubble piles look like. This is a rubble pile from that nice orderly sedimentary rock that we've been seeing all day. And there's little chunks everywhere. They've all kind of welded together over time. But these are all little chunks of rock here. Literally broken and then welded back together just because of the force of the overlying rocks at the time. This would have happened below the Earth's crust. So there was a geological fault right here that shattered these rocks. And the name for rocks that are shattered, or chunks of rocks that are shattered and welded back together, is called breccia. B-R-E-C-C-I-A. This is called fault breccia because it formed along a fault. So the geology of this place is amazing. The history here, the people that found the dinosaur tracks, is amazing, and the beauty of these trails. I recorded just one of the campsites before this clip here. This is a beautiful campground. Everything is shaded. Some of them have views of the Connecticut River. The Connecticut River surrounds this peninsula here. Beautiful campground. Only open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Primitive. You can drive back there, but there's no running water at the campsites and no electricity. But if you don't mind that type of camping, this is an amazing place. And we'll go take a look at the map of it on our way out, and then we're going to head down to Holyoke tomorrow and check out the Dinosaur Footprints Reservation. And this is the map of this facility. So Massachusetts Highway 2 comes in from Greenfield, and there are signs for this park. Day use parking is where I started. We explored some of these peninsulas here. That's where we found the ripple mark fossils, or preserved ripple marks. And then the Interpreter Trail goes underneath all these cliffs through here, joins the campground road for a short distance, and then goes back to the dinosaur track quarry where I did the recording of the tracks, what I thought were tracks. And that trail just keeps on going. I took it right about to here and then decided to head back because of the time. But those are all campsites numbered there as well. They're all in the woods. They're all beautiful. This amazing place. And the historical value as well. All right, well, this is going to be a 2-day dinosaur tracking mission here in the Connecticut Valley. I'm at the campsite near Barton Cove. This is actually just across the border in Vermont, called Fort Drummer. Let's do a little demonstration. We'll use all the essential ingredients for a camping trip to demonstrate how this rift valley formed and how the dinosaur footprints came to be. This coffee cake represents the mountains that were here before the rifting occurred. And they were tall mountains, and they were igneous and metamorphic rocks, all folded and contorted, just like the dough in this coffee cake is all turned on its side, and a mishmash of minerals and an interesting conglomeration of mountains. Well, as the earth, that was basically formed by compression in the Earth's crust, where the rocks were being pushed together. You can see just a little bit of that there. And then, as the Earth's crust started to pull apart, faults started to form on either side of this central valley here, what became a central valley. And several other areas were rifting as well. This is called rifting. And the one that rifted the best became the Atlantic Ocean. The rest became rift valleys that filled in with sediment, like we see in the Connecticut River Valley here. So as that rifting occurred, the central block of the Connecticut Valley here, which is 15-20 miles wide in most places, lowered in elevation relative to the surrounding mountains, and then the rainfall caused the pieces of those mountains to start filling in the valley in the form of sediment, sand, and mud and gravel. So this peanut butter will represent the sand and gravel and mud that started washing into the Rift Valley and started filling it in. Meanwhile, there was animals walking around, and where the conditions were just right, they would leave their footprints in the peanut butter. So what I've done to demonstrate the fact that when the conditions are just right, the dinosaurs' footprints are preserved, or at least are visible in the sediments. So I've got powdered sugar on one half of the peanut butter layer and none on the other half. And where I stuck my finger in the peanut butter with no sugar on top of it, it just made a gooey mess. So that sediment was too squishy and muddy to make a good footprint impression. Where it was just a little bit drier, represented by the powdered sugar just to dry out the top of the peanut butter, I was able to leave my fingerprint, or footprint, if you want to look at it that way, in the peanut butter. And of course, shortly after the dinosaur left his footprint in the sediment, there was probably more rain. I mean, the climate at the time, they had a rainy season and a dry season. That's what the geological record implies. So maybe a few months later, that footprint probably had time to dry out but not wash away, and then was covered in more peanut butter or sediment and was preserved between layers of sediment. Meanwhile, the Earth's crust was continuing to separate, and lava was finding its way up through the cracks in the Rift Valley and would often cover the sedimentary rocks with several hundred or even thousands of feet thick lava deposits. Those lava deposits are what form most of the taller ridges in the Rift Valley, including Mount Tom that we saw from the lookout yesterday. And between episodes of lava coming out into the Connecticut Valley, more peanut butter or sediment would be deposited on top of those layers. And several of the hikes I've done in the past showed that. I did one on, it's called Lava Ledges and Lookouts, and it was near Bluff Head in Guilford, Connecticut. I actually scrambled down into a ravine and saw the contact between the lava and the peanut butter, in this case, or sedimentary rock. That video is still on this channel, so I actually went off trail to find that. It was pretty interesting. So here's what we got, our layer sandwich in the Rift Valley. The reason the rocks that we saw at Barton Cove, and we'll see in Holyoke and down at another park I'm going to go to called Powder Hill Dinosaur Park. The reason they're not laying flat is because as the rifting was occurring, this east side of the Connecticut Rift Valley was lowered faster than the west side. So as these rocks and lava layers were being deposited on the level, eventually the rifting that accelerated on the east side caused this to become tipped at quite steep in places. So that's the reason why we have places like Mount Tom, which is basically a hogback ridge of tougher rock that withstood an erosion, and the peanut butter on either side washed away. So that's how the Connecticut Rift Valley formed, Connecticut River Rift Valley. That's how dinosaur footprints can form in sedimentary rock. And here's the reason why we see all these layers on an angle and not level. Well, keep a picture of that chocolate and peanut butter layers sandwich in your mind as we study this ledge here. This is our peanut butter right here, this sandstone. And this is the Connecticut River. And the layer of chocolate, it's tipped at an angle, but you can't tell from here, is those Seven Sisters. We're looking from the south right now at the Seven Sisters. Sugarloaf Mountain would be on the other side. This is an unofficial area used by fishermen. The Dinosaur Footprints Reservation is nearby here. I think I may have found one right here. I put some baby powder and some water on it, and it almost has the appearance of one. So this is probably a dinosaur footprint that filled in with sand and it hasn't all come out yet. So I'm just guessing, I'm not 100% sure, but it's about the size and about the shape. And there's plenty of plant fossils right over here on this other ledge. Let's go take a look at those. We've got ripple marks here, like we saw up by Barton Cove. There's some right there. And these are much wider stems or leaves than we saw yesterday. These are about 2 or 3 inches wide and 1.5 feet long. So what we saw yesterday may have been a type of grass. This may have been something larger. There's some more right there. So there was carnivorous dinosaurs and ones that ate plants, and so we can see part of the food chain here, the start of the food chain. There's plant fossils right there. Well, if you come north of Holyoke, Massachusetts, a couple miles on US 5, you come to a small pullover with a sign that says Dinosaur Footprints Reservation. This is a small park, just a few acres in size, but it's amazing what's here. This is the path that comes down from Route 5. It's, I wouldn't say it's handicap accessible, but you could probably do it with a cane. And they've got some interpretive signs here. And a large slab of this tilted sandstone for us to study. There's a lot of the history on this. This is all available on their website as well. But let's just take one quick look at what's here. The largest prints are 11 to 13 inches long. That's from a carnivorous Eubrontes giganteus. The intermediate sized prints are from Anchisaurus sillimani. And the smallest ones, 3 to 5 inches, are from Grallator cunatius. My Latin's a little rusty there, but a lot of the names in the scientific community are based on Latin. The sun's out today. It's making it easier to see these prints. I don't know if it's going to be out the whole time we're here, though. So let's see what we can find with the sun out. I brought water to spray them with to accentuate the print if we need to, and the baby powder as well. Now, there's our ripple marks that we saw yesterday. So we saw ripple marks yesterday, but we didn't find any prints right on that slab. But there probably were some, in the area. I'm sure if we were allowed to and were able to pry apart some of those rocks there, we probably could have found some. So ripple marks are common. in the sandstones around here. Here's a medium-sized print. Probably big enough to be the largest one, the Eubrontes. Yeah, the sun is playing hide and seek today, so I went ahead and sprayed this with some water to accentuate it. This is probably the larger one, Eubrontes, I'm thinking. And there's my pocket knife for scale, so probably about 11 inches. Here's the bottom of the footprint. Here's one toe, here's the other, and here's the middle toe. And just a few feet up the slab from the one we just looked at, this one's got a circle around it. I'm not sure if there's a scientific explanation for that or if that's somebody chiseling it. I think it's natural. But this is again that larger Eubrontes. This guy was really big. Look at that. That's bigger than the one we just looked at. So probably from a different animal. Probably at least 12, 14 inches long. One toe, another toe. I'll tell you what, those guys are meat eaters. And if their foot was that big, I wouldn't want to be around when they're around because I don't think I could outrun them. There we go. All right, well there's what I'd have to be out running, boy oh boy. It shows what I was showing is peanut butter in that demonstration this morning. This is showing that sand. Some was a little too wet, some was a little too dry. We've got a trackway here. So I've sprayed with water, I think 1, 2, 3, about 7 tracks that are from one animal. They're going right up this slab. Again, this is slightly tilted here, maybe a 20-degree angle. So that's because the rifting was happening faster on the east side of the border fault, or the eastern border fault is rifting faster. So here's our track. I can't make a step that big. I got to make 2 steps for every 1 step this guy was making. And there we are. I think if the sun were out and I sprayed these, they'd really be obvious. There's one right there. So this guy was walking on a flat area with mud and sand that has since been tilted by the geological forces that happened afterwards. And there's the first trackway that I highlighted a minute ago. Just over this slab here, I've got another one. Slightly smaller prints, but probably still from Eubrontes. So here we are. You can see the 3 toes here. Again, depending on how sticky or not sticky the peanut butter is, depends on how well it's preserved. This one here, I think it was a good imprint, but then the filling hasn't completely been removed from where this toe is. There's still some sand on top of that, some sandstone. So this looks like a good one here. This one's all filled in, all been removed. So you put your foot in the peanut butter. If it makes a good impression, that's fine, but then we cover it again with peanut butter, and if it doesn't all peel off perfectly during, in this case, road construction, if the slab doesn't break off clean, then you end up with an imperfect print. There's another one there. This one is just, it's about where the next one should be, but it's just a hole in the mud. Not real obvious. And this one here, I can faintly see where the 3 toes are. So, if you go down to Rocky Hill, Connecticut, to the Dinosaur State Park, they've got them under roof. They were exposed during building construction and preserved immediately. They put a roof over it immediately so that they wouldn't become weathered like you see here. These have been exposed for since the 1920s, so they're getting less and less crisp as time goes by, but they're still here, and hopefully they will be. And just kind of near a break in this rock ledge here where it gets narrow for a few minutes, I found a smaller print here. I'm guessing it's the smallest one, the smallest of the three species that are found here, the growlator. There's my pocket knife for scale. So that one was supposed to be 3 to 5 inches, and that's about what we have here. That pocket knife is 3 inches long. So yes, you can see it right there. We'll keep looking around for a few more minutes, then we're going to head down to what's called Powder Hill Dinosaur Park in Middlefield, Connecticut, about 50 miles south of here. And just to the right of one of these trackways that we've already recorded, I found 2 tracks going the other way from the larger dinosaur, the Eubrontes. One right there, and there's one right there. Well, this will be our 3rd stop on our mission to track dinosaurs along the Connecticut River. Well, the park at Barton Cove was on the Connecticut River, and the one at Dinosaur Footprints Reservation was a stone's throw from the river. This park is probably 10 miles from the river, but we're still in the same rift valley that the Connecticut River flows through much of its course through Connecticut. And we are in Connecticut now. This is Beseck Lake. Beautiful lake, lots of houses on it, but it's still beautiful. It is not natural. It was made to provide water power for mills. Every stream in this area was diverted for water power, almost every one. The demand for water power was so great in the 1800s, great efforts were made to create lakes or diversions to power the mills. So our 3rd stop is going to be what's called Powder Hill Dinosaur Park. It's just about a mile from here. The reason we stopped at Beseck Lake is the purpose of this lake was to provide water power, and the farmers nearby provided the rocks to build this dam. As when they were quarrying those rocks, the unintended discovery was the dinosaur footprints, just like up at the Barton Cove and Lily Pond quarry. They weren't looking for footprints, but they sure did find them, and it set them on a different course. The gentleman that found the prints on his property actually started educating himself and eventually became a professor at Yale University, based on the discovery of the dinosaur tracks while he was trying to quarry stone. So you just never know what might cause you to change paths in life. I guess that's the lesson in that. Now, what I read was they put the best tracks they could find from the quarry on top of the dam. Well, I read that the dam had been raised 15 feet since they first built it in the 1840s, so I wasn't expecting to find these here today, but I think when they raised it, they may have went ahead and put the best tracks on top again, or reused them on top of the new dam. So here's a large, looks like a growlator right here. And another one right here. Again, these are almost 200 years old since they've been quarried, so they've weathered. But you can still see that. I just freshened it up with some more water. Reflection today is not perfect for getting these to really show up. We're in an overcast pattern right now, so I think we're gonna have to make do with what we have. We're gonna go over to the Powder Hill Dinosaur Park in a few minutes here. I just freshened up that other track, and I think with the reflection we can kind of see it. So we'll see what the prints look like at that park. There's supposed to be many dozen tracks in the park. It's right next to Powder Ridge Ski Area, and it is open to the public. It's owned by the town of Middlefield. So let's just drive right over there and see what they got. Alrighty, well, just about a mile from that Beseck Lake, we are at the Powder Hill Dinosaur Park. This is operated by the town of Middlefield. It is on Powder Hill Road. Little information about the gentleman I was talking about, Wesley Coe, who later became a professor at Yale. and curator of zoology at the Peabody Museum, which is at Yale. It says after he died, he gave the property to the Peabody Museum, and they operated it until 1976. The town of Middlefield was given the park, and since then Powder Hill Dinosaur Park has been improved by Eagle Scouts. And here it says the species that might be here. Eubrontes giganteus, that's the one we saw up in Holyoke. Reflection's a problem here, but I think you can read that. That's the one we just saw at the dam. I called it the growlator. I was going from memory, so I needed a refresher. So we had the large prints in Holyoke by Eubrontes giganteus, and the medium-sized prints are from Anchisaurius, which we found in Holyoke as well. That's what was there. I didn't know if I found those. And then the smaller ones are from the growlator. This is just a small park here with a fence around it to preserve it. Let's see what they have. And right behind that kiosk is the slabs that have the prints in them. So, you know, if you're used to seeing stuff at museums, think differently when you come do what I just did the last couple days, because you're not going to find crisp prints, especially on quarries that are almost 200 years old. They don't look like that. So, but there's discovery here too. This guy's about as big as my hand, so maybe the Anchisaurus. And this guy's about as big as my hand. So again, that medium-sized one. This one's a lot bigger. It could be a growlator. Excuse me, Eubrontes right there. He's pretty big, bigger than my hand. And here it looks like maybe one stepped on the other's track. We got a track going this way. We got part of a track going this way, and then an obvious one going the other way. So maybe there was a reason why they stepped on each other's tracks. Coincidence, or maybe they were chasing each other, who knows what. I've got a map of the prints from the article on this place. I didn't print it off, it's on my tablet, but it shows you which layers of this sandstone have the prints and where they are, so I'm using that to try to find them. But there's 4 layers of sandstone here. There's the one I'm standing on. It doesn't have a lot, it said. And then the next one up is right here. There's a break in it, then it's right here. And it's also right over here. That one's supposed to have a lot. And this layer that we just looked at is supposed to have a lot. So we'll just keep poking around for a few more minutes. This place is not even a ½ acre in size, but it's worth seeing if you want to discover stuff on your own. And come out here on a sunny day when the leaves are down. And you might get some really good lighting for making these things easier to find. And if you come in the fall, bring your own leaf blower, because you'd probably need it. And one of the Eagle Scout projects was to clear the poison ivy off this. I guess it had gone into disuse. And this poison ivy, which you still see here, had grown over the whole slab. So if you are allergic to poison ivy, just be careful. It's not out on the slab, but it's near it. This is the slab we just looked at. Underneath it, on the map that I'm using, it's called seam or layer number 2. Layer number 1 is at the very bottom. So here we've got a pretty large one, probably Eubrontes, a little bit, you know, weathered. This area was quarried in the 1840s, so almost 200 years of weathering will take its toll. Here's one facing the other way. It's a lot smaller. This could be the growlator or the Anchisaurus. I'm sure I'm butchering those names. And here's a smaller one as well. Again, they all had 3 toes. So there we are, 1 toe, 2 toes, 3 toes. We'll spend a few more minutes here. I'll record some if there's any more that are really different than what we just found, but there's a lot more mapped on the article I downloaded, so I don't think the town's website had this map. I had to do a little more looking. So let's see here. I'll try to type in the article that this is from when I edit the video, but with the lighting today, it's not going to show up too well. Okay, this map shows the different beds. The lowest bed is at the bottom, and the bed number 4 is at the top. It has a map of them, the prints that they think that they have found over the years in each bed. So we just looked at part of bed number 2 and part of bed number 4. We'll poke around a little bit longer and try to discover a few more of these at the Powder Hill Dinosaur Park. Alright, well, bed number 2 on that map is discontinuous, but the right side of it as you're facing it does have a nice large probably Eubrontes print right here. This guy's really big. Of course, the mud gets squished out, especially if the mud is soft. So that may be bigger than the actual animal. Again, the peanut butter has to be just right for the print to actually hold. And obviously it could get washed away, or if it gets too dry, blown away. So a lot of good things have to happen for a print to last. And then for it to be rediscovered millions of years later is even more amazing. There's a really big Eubrontes print. Pretty easy to see that right there. And we're in bed number 3 right here. So we were on 2, we were on 4. I think we're on 3 now. This one's a little less crisp. To get the lighting just right, you can see 3 toes on that large print there. Again, probably Eubrontes. I think we just looked at this one. There's 2 more up here. I think this is back in bed number 2. There's one right there. There's one more right here, right at the edge. So I'm sure there's a lot more here. I took a broom and really swept this off real good and started really looking. I'm sure I could find a lot more. There are a lot more on that map I just showed. There's some mud cracks here, fossilized mud cracks right there. So this is a neat little place. Doesn't take long to explore it. The one at Barton Cove was more interesting because of the historical value. Not the prints, but a beautiful hike. That was more of a hike. The Dinosaur Footprints Reservation in Holyoke had some great prints, and it wasn't much of a walk to get back there. So both of those, the Dinosaur Footprints Reservation in Holyoke and this one here in Middlefield, Connecticut, are definitely the place to go if you want to see prints. Barton Cove is a nice hike. Great place to see the geology, especially that breccia. And wildlife. There's bald eagles there. But these second 2 stops on this mission to track dinosaurs in the Connecticut Valley are where you can go to for certain see them.